part 3 of analysis and assessment of the Gateway program. We are going over it, and we're going to be up to page, anywhere we can discuss, anywhere up to page 26, which is almost the end of the document. And this is from Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell, is the one that's investigating this for the Army, for his commander, trying to figure out what's going on with the Gateway program and how they can possibly, I guess, use it for military reasons and stuff like that. Juice out of New York, and I don't have much to talk about that's happening. These documents are pretty dense and a lot to absorb. And that's all I got. So I'll pass it off to Glenn.
Well, I'm listening to a different Gateway tape every night, or every morning actually. So I got through the threshold 6 tapes, which is interesting. And I'm starting on the Freedom one, Wave 3, which has a lot more to do with the OBEs. So I definitely appreciate you sending me that one document on the explanations of the different ones there, Juice. That helped tremendously. And so I'm just waiting to see what that has, and still using a lot of different breathing techniques, and happen to get my in EFT to get my energy levels up before I start early in the morning. So I got about an hour's worth of breathing and meditation prior to starting those tapes. So it's kind of interesting.
And for the regulars that weren't here last time, and you guys know who you are out there, Glenn's had some pretty good success, Glenn, right? With your link that you sent us. I didn't get to look into it yet.
Yeah.
But Glenn talked about it last time. He's had like pretty great success with that.
Yeah, I'm using phasing instead of going on the vibrational states. So my aha moment was I've been successful for years and years, and just didn't have the right terms to describe it. So hope everybody enjoyed that those links, and also that flying link I put on there in terms of what it's like to fly. That's pretty close.
All right, thanks, Glenn.
Yep.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm from South Texas. I'm an astral projector. I've been an astral projector since I was a child. So it's my subject. I love this.
Thanks, Susan. Hi, Julie.
Hello, all. Yeah, Glenn, I would be interested in those 2 links. I think I heard from the last, or the first, maybe it was the first session.
Yeah, I'm looking them up now.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of them was like the focus levels, I think. And then there was another one. Been busy here with, I'm from the Earth plane. And
Ooh.
sometimes
You're one of the people from Earth?
I'm one of those crazy people that consider incarnating on the Earth, rethinking that decision all the time. No. Yeah, I just nothing too new. It's been just a lot of dreams. Kind of the last update similar. A lot of dreaming and some real vivid dreams, but life has been kind of busy. I've been more involved in some life stuff. So you know how that is. Sometimes it's hard to stay, spend time focusing on this when life pulls you in different directions. But I've missed you all and glad to be here.
Glad you're back, Julie. Hi, Marty.
You know something, I was talking with someone else about this the other day, but see if I can put this in front of my camera. You see that? It says Next Care. Can you guys read it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's tape. It's called hospital tape. Have any of you ever heard of mouth taping? MOUTH? Taping? Have you, do you do it?
Well, is it mouth taping for so you learn to breathe through your nose at night? It's better for your
Yeah.
health.
Yes, it's partly that, but the other thing is that when you become relaxed enough to sleep, your mouth falls open. Everybody will do that unless you're braced somehow. So, which is very bad for you in a whole range of reasons. And so by using the tape, your jaw muscles can totally relax because you're not trying to hold your mouth shut, because you will try to do that. So if you're trying to get into a totally relaxed state, you can do it easier with your mouth taped shut. Plus your mouth doesn't dry out. I mean, you know, with all of us trying to lie there for long periods of time, you know, it's just one of those distraction things that your mouth gets really dry. So it keeps your mouth moist. And if you do need to open your mouth, this kind of tape, the Next Care, it doesn't hold real tight. I mean, it holds tight enough to keep your mouth shut, but it'll, if you had to sneeze or something, you know, your mouth would just open. So, you know, like people get real worried that they're going to suffocate or something if they do that. And you don't need to worry about that. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because I got clued into this a couple of years ago. And from the first night that I tried it, if I don't do it, you know, I wake up and my mouth's hanging open and I'm snoring and all kinds of things. And it also generally stops you from snoring too. And it's just now on the flip side, Monroe would talk about oral breathing, and I just don't know why, because I don't know what good that would do you. With the tape, you still can move your jaw as far as tuning. You know, he was talking about moving his jaw to tune.
Right.
Not that I've ever done it, but, you know, he talked about it. So anyway, so I recommend people try it. It's just makes you very, very relaxed and it makes you sleep better.
You got to keep us updated on it, Marty, how it works for you.
Well,
Yes.
I've been using the tape for like 3 years.
Have you? Is it hypoallergenic?
It's pretty hypoallergenic. It's not latex. It says on the back that it's not latex.
Yeah.
That this is the good brand, Nexcare, Nexcare, and it.
I'm real allergic to anything with latex, and bag put a Band-Aid on, take it off the next day, and a week later you can still see where the Band-Aid was on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it says right on it that it is not latex,
Yeah.
not made with natural rubber latex. Not.
Yeah. I could do that. I've never breathed through my mouth though, unless I have a cold and I can't breathe through my nose. I can't stand and breathe through my mouth. I can't open my mouth at night. I just can't.
Oh, that's interesting.
I can't. I have to. No, I used to be afraid when I was little that a spider would crawl in my mouth or something. I was.
Well, that's another benefit of sleeping with your mouth shut. Yes.
Yeah, but
especially in Texas, huh?
Yeah, I just can't breathe through. I don't like it. I don't like it. I've always breathed through my nose, and I'm fortunate that I can breathe real freely through my nose, so it's never been a problem. But I might try that anyway. Just you know, just feel that relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to try it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another thing to it too. If you research it, that when you breathe through your nose, your nasal passages make nitric oxide, and that is. You get about 25% of it by breathing through your nose. So people who fall asleep and breathe through their mouth are depriving themselves of that, which is, it's a gas. But nitric oxide, and again, you can look it up. It does all kinds of wonderful things for you. It increases your muscle tone and da-da-da-da-da. But one of the most important things is that it relaxes smooth muscle. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 3 different kinds of muscle, but you have skeletal muscle, which is, you know, your muscles, and cardiac muscle, which is your heart. And smooth muscle is your digestive system and your airways, and also the muscles around your larger arteries. So you'll relax your arteries and your airways by getting more nitric oxide. So when you breathe through your nose, not only does it do all kind of other things like moisten the air and keep your mouth from drying out and all that, but it's also relaxing the smooth muscle in your system. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Good
take
to
up all-
know. No, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Marty,
Yeah.
you think I could use it with my beard and mustache?
You know, that's a good question, and I've wondered about that. With
I'm
Just
gonna-
but a roll
just
a
live.
roll of tape's $5, so if
Tape
if
around.
it doesn't work, you can use it for a Band-Aid or something. You know?
Well, I'll probably be shaving this off soon because my friend's he's gonna be going on the Appalachian Trail, so I'm gonna drop him off. We actually leaving tomorrow to North Carolina to drop him off between the Georgia and North Carolina border. So I was growing this until he goes on the trail, so I'm gonna cut it off soon. So I'll be able to practice it too.
Ooh,
Walk that last year yourself, Joe?
Yeah, I tried to, but we got kicked. We decided to leave because the regulations with the parks and stuff were giving out tickets because of the COVID and stuff like that. So yeah, but I might do it again. Try it again next year.
Yeah.
I'm having fun doing this instead right now with you guys. So I enjoy this more than doing the trail. Otherwise, I would have went with them. Let's see. All right, guys. So we're going to go in and talk about anything up to page 26, which includes page 25, which is the mysterious missing document that everybody used to talk about that was missing, that was finally released by the Monroe Institute. And according to Dr. Scott Taylor, the piece that was missing is nothing magical or mysterious. It was just probably forgotten to be scanned in, he said, on an interview I listened to. So, and I went over it. There's nothing to me that was special about document 25, page 25. Bullet point number 25 in the document. I have a note here. By reflecting on the torus model, which we talked about, was like the model of the universe shaped like an egg, and how things repeat through that, and how the Big Bang came out of that, and everything gets recycled from that. It becomes possible to see how human consciousness brought to a sufficiently altered focused state could obtain information concerning the past, present, and future, since they all exist in the universal hologram simultaneously. In the case of the future, because all of the consequences of the past and present can be seen coming together in the hologram, such that the future can be predicted or seen with total accuracy. So this is the information he's finding out here. And that's the torus model that we talked about last meeting. So you can do the past, present, and future through that. And then on number 27 of the document, since memory is a function of consciousness and therefore enjoys the same eternal character as the consciousness which accounts for the existence, it must be admitted that when the consciousness returns to the absolute, it brings with it all of the memories it has accumulated through the experience in reality. Monroe talked about this in his books. So this is talking about, again, how we bring our memories, what we're learning here with us. And I know a lot of us wonder if we're going to bring what we're learning here with us or it gets wiped out. According to the documents, we bring it with us. And Monroe talked about this in his books. So what we do lose is the capacity for generation of independent thought holograms, since this can be done only by energy and motion. In other words, it retains the power to perceive, but loses the power of will or choice. During an out-of-body experience, you are projecting that eternal spark of consciousness and memory to play in and learn from dimensions both inside and outside of time-space world. So you guys can see how this relates a little bit to the books, what he's picking up here. And I'm going to pull up exhibit number 3 here on the screen. This is kind of what he's talking about here. Okay, guys, there's the torus that he talks about. Kind of looks like a heart too, doesn't it? That's one example of it. And this is actually the position of our galaxy in the universe here. So here's our galaxy, and this is where we are in this giant Taurus universe, how we relate to it. So would anybody like to talk about what this might mean to you?
It looks, you know, when you see the arrows going around the outside. So the energy, and as energy runs through us, as we pull energy up through our, you know, through our lower chakras and up through our head. If you've ever seen it come out of someone, if you've ever seen auras and seen someone really meditating, the energy runs up through the center and it comes out the top of your head, but it does what this does. Then it goes around down each side and it circulates, and it's just, that Taurus thing applies also, I think, to what our aura does a little bit.
Right.
Seems like.
I wonder, you remember how we talked about the aperture and stuff in the book that where he's never been to, Robert Monroe? I wonder where that might be on this chart. You think it might be the white hole, possibly? You guys see where it says white hole there? The nucleus?
Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen an aperture like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where all of Monroe's eye there is. That's where everybody was going to meet up. And eventually, with everybody's experiences and stuff, we'll enter through the aperture. And that's it. And then he's not sure what happens after that. I guess it goes maybe on here to the absolute, which is basically infinity they talk about on here.
Can you scroll up to where they had that chart with the sine wave on it?
Is this?
No, a little bit. We talked about it last time. I had
This one?
I came across that again while I was looking at some tapes associated with emotional freedom techniques and definition of consciousness. There was a Stanford scientist by the name of William Teller that talked about that, and it fits this beautifully because that center section, the oscillating energy pattern in time-space,
Right.
is more like the noise, our physical world, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And those peaks on either side are actually, when we get into the meditative state and our consciousness is exposed to that, and that's where we have our experiences, and that's where you touch into your intuition and your intention. And I hadn't related it to this particular diagram, but I watched that the day after we met, and it's like, an epiphany here, and big light bulbs going off. So we succeed when we're in the either on the bottom or the top side of that noise or the physical noise. And what we have to do to succeed is to quiet that noise and allow our consciousness to get into those two particular areas. I thought that was kind of interesting.
And did he mention, I think he mentioned something in the documents here about the tops and bottom parts are the resting areas? Does that ring a bell? Something about resting areas. There's an area
relating it to the write-up in this article, but
yeah.
William Teller, I was very impressed with his model, if you will, for consciousness, and it relates to this beautiful.
Anyone else like to talk about this one or the other diagram? Yeah, we talked about this one last week, and we're talking about clicking out and how there's certain, when you phase in and phase out of different frequencies, different areas, you'll click out. Like, say your body falls asleep, your consciousness clicks out into another dimension, another area, depending where your brain function is, the hertz of where you're at. And it's just like we talked about many times, like a TV station or a radio station tuning into different areas, and you click out of other areas as you tune into other areas. And this is how the oscillating aspects of it. And if you go beyond certain points, there's nothing into infinity, the absolute they talked about. And the distance between the areas there is what we're experiencing of the hologram. There's no holograms when you're in the absolute. And yeah, I guess basically nothing. I don't know. Let's see, what we do is we lose is our capacity for generation of independent thought holograms, since this can be done only by energy and motion. In other words, it retains, we talked about that. So when you're out of the physical body, you're going to lose certain types of interactions with holograms, of course. All right, and then on number 28 here of the documents, he gets into the gateway method, starts diving into his investigation into that. And these techniques are designed to enable the user of the gateway tapes to manipulate the high energy states, which can be achieved if the user continues to work with the tapes over a period of time. The amount of time required to reach advanced energy states and to fully exploit the techniques varies from individual. And then he starts to bring up the different areas you go through listening to the gateway program. And the first one was the energy conversion box. And is everyone familiar with the energy conversion box or not? And the gateway?
I'm not.
No. It's when you start, you basically envision a box, a hard, big, heavy box, and you lift up the heavy lid and you put in all your worries and concerns and stuff in there so it doesn't affect you during the meditation. And then you close that heavy lid and then you just forget about that. You don't let it get in the way of your meditation during the rest of the tape.
Yeah.
That's the conversion box.
That's a good visualization.
Next, he gets into the resonant tuning, and that's the humming. When you hum along with the chorus on there, which you talked about, Marty, the weird noises, you hum along, trying to get the vibration, a feeling of vibration, particularly in the head. So you want to get a vibrational state going. And then he gets into the gateway affirmation, which is popular with the Monroe Institute, that we are more than our physical bodies, and that you're deeply desired to expand your consciousness. And then number 29 here, the hemisync introduced. After the affirmation, then it starts to get into the hemisync noise and the sound frequencies, which tries to sync your brain waves. So just try to imagine this lieutenant colonel trying to do all this stuff here. He's experiencing this. The next is a technique of progressive and systematic physical relaxation using pink and white noise designed to put the physical body at the virtual threshold of sleep, as well as calm the left hemisphere of the mind while raising the right hemisphere to a state of heightened attentiveness. So I thought that was a pretty good way of putting it. What's actually the hemisync trying to do to your brain? And so it's trying to calm your left side while trying to raise your right hemisphere. So you're actually putting the left one to sleep and trying to get the right one to stay aware. And if you think of meditators on the East, yogis and stuff like that, monks and meditators, they're good with the right side of the brain of doing this. We're more left-brained here in the West. And then the next step is building the energy balloon, which we talked about a little bit from the books and stuff. What happens in the future with the energy balloons, and people have them set up on bodies, and sets up a pattern, very reminiscent of the cosmic egg around your body. The balloon not only enhances bodily energy flow, but encourages early achievement of a suitable resonant state, but it also designed to provide protection against conscious entities possessing lower energy levels which a participant might encounter in the event that he achieves an out-of-body state. So it's also there to protect you.
Was he meaning that you create that?
Mm-hmm.
Because have you ever seen, it sounds like the egg thing, if you've ever seen a full aura of somebody, have you ever seen like the full huge thing? It's like a huge egg. I've seen it about 3 times. I've seen auras, but just seeing that thing, I've seen it 3 times. And it was so startling to me and so absolutely beautiful that we have this egg around us all the time anyway. So I'm assuming that Monroe, knowing that, is infusing it. You're infusing that with more protection, more, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's what you mean.
it goes in through the head. I mean, let's see, it comes up through the head and it comes out, and then it comes around you and it comes back in through your feet.
Yeah.
And that's how you're supposed to envision it, making your own. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glenn, I'm right on that, I think. Right?
Yeah, you are. And that torus diagram that you showed a couple of minutes ago, that's what I envision when I pop my reball or that resonant energy balloon in his tapes. He just recommends, he steps you through a sequence on it, but you just envision a ball of white light with the number 10 in it, and that's what they in terms of your imagery. See, a lot of people can't visualize that, so they can't see it. I'm kind of having issues on that, so I think about it. But that picture on the literal side, that torus, that's what I envision, on the left side. But yeah, you can send energy out. It protects you, and you can pump that up. And Juice, you've gone through that threshold tape in terms of where they have the body map, creating a energy bar that you can go ahead and to use to detect the different colors in the aura, basically, and then you can send energy to any spot that's dark or it's flickering or it's dim. So, and the goal there is just to create a balanced meridian system and energy flow, basically.
Right. And also, too, the balloon, you can use other entities and spirits and stuff out there can actually get information from that, too. What type of person you are that's out there. It's also information.
Can't hide anything.
Yeah.
We are who we are.
All right. I'm up to number 30 here, bullet point here in the document, advanced techniques, and talks about focus. Here he gets into focus 10 and focus 12. In focus 12, you are ready to achieve a state of sufficiently expanded awareness to begin actually interacting with dimensions beyond those associated with your experience of physical reality. And also he talks more about focus 12, the tools you can start using for self-discovery, personal growth. These are things you can learn in focus 12, and with the problem solving, patterning. And to me, it sounds for the patterning one, like the law of attraction concept. And basically, you are what you think about most of the time, and what you attract in your life. And that's what you're going to get from and he refers to it as a hologram. Now, the more complicated the thoughts of what you want in this world, the more time the universal hologram will need to reorient your reality sphere to accommodate your desires. And when Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this process because the individual could succeed in dislocating his existing reality with drastic consequences if you try to push it too hard. Anybody like to talk about that?
Well, I just listened to that tape here this week on the patterning, and he talked about 7 different patterns. The first level is your physical body, then you can Um, with intention, you can, you're just trying to, how do you envision yourself within the next month, basically? So you can do that on the physical body, and then you can do it with your pattern and the emotional self and the mental self, and your total self. So the tapes go into some pretty interesting concepts there. So if you're at all familiar with the energy bodies, et cetera, you know, in consciousness, that's what they're dealing with. And pretty powerful stuff, actually.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty powerful if you think about that. And people are big now. It seems like, again, I hear a lot of it, the law of attraction, and you get what you're thinking about it most of the time in your life. If you're thinking about problems, you're gonna probably get a lot of problems. If you're thinking about good stuff, hopefully you'll get a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, if I may, can I comment on that just for a second?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I've mentioned that I'm using those emotional freedom techniques, and the law of attraction, I've been into that for years and years, power of positive thinking, you know, Norman Vincent Peale and all that. But you're exactly right. If you think negative, you're going to draw that. But if you think positive, it's there as well. And is everybody familiar or heard of muscle testing? Okay, because you can actually, your body, it can tell you whether it's weak or strong, and it's kind of interesting. But for lack of, if somebody is standing next to me and has one arm here, and then they press down on my wrist and ask me a question, like if you were to send me negative energy, all this group, my arm would go weak. But if you were to send me love and all of that, it's strong. And you can use that as a diagnosis tool. And it's really kind of interesting. But what happens is that law of attraction, your emotional body and your energy systems are, they have blockages or self-sabotage. You know, that inner voice that's sitting on your shoulder all the time? Guess what? You might want to have everything in the world, but you know that inner voice that says, yeah, right, tell me about that, right? You can test for that. And if you see that, there's a way to reverse that, remove all that negative stuff. And then you can go ahead and focus in on those law of attraction and your intention. And it's intimately or infinitely more powerful. You've heard of the, like 1 to the second, that's how much energy you can get out, or the intention. And if you have 2 people, it's 2 to the square, it's 4. How many people we have on here? We got 8. You know, you square that, that's 64 times the power that you can get out there in the universe with the power of the law of attraction. Some pretty powerful stuff. And actually, I teach on that for businesses and different individuals as a coach as well. So it's kind of cool. I'm very passionate on that, if you can't tell.
Hey Glenn, what are you trying to manifest with that painting in your background there?
That is I was in the submarine force, and when I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, I have a series of these, and this is the Charleston Harbor during a storm. And I have several that have like the Rainbow Row that they have, and it's an interesting one. But this is the Charleston Harbor and all the homes for the captains. And this is a storm with all the waves breaking over the breaker there into the front doors, if you will. It just speaks to me. So that's why I have that. I've had that for, 40 years.
Nice.
Hi, Steph. I didn't know that was you with the S. I heard you start talking. I'm like, when did I let Stephanie in here?
Looking on you. Yeah, so that's kind of creepy. Like if you think about teleportation, you know, like if you can actually will yourself, you know, say you intend to try to teleport somewhere, but you accidentally leave your entire timeline.
Yeah.
Can accidents happen like that? And it sounds like that's the implication.
You guys know David that comes on here once in a while. He has ties to the Monroe Institute. He sent me he sent me a message a couple days ago. He had a great experience, and the second part he sent was he teleported. He finally teleported. So I gotta read up on it and see exactly what he did.
Is he
But I
calling
mean,
projection? Is he saying he astral projected, or that he bilocated, or what did he do?
The first message he was like, "Oh, I have such great news. I had a great experience meditating and stuff." And then I'm like, "What's going on, David?" And then he goes, "Oh, I didn't actually read the message yesterday. He sent it to me this morning. Something I could just read part of it. Something about teleporting in it, but I didn't get to read the whole thing yet." So
I'm gonna guess
Teleport.
you mean physically.
Yeah, teleportation is physical, right?
yeah,
Well,
so
you can teleport in a dream and out of body. So I'm gonna guess you meant out of body.
yeah,
Bilocate.
Okay.
You can bilocate also and be very solid elsewhere, but you can be quite aware of where you are at the same time. So I was wondering if he meant that.
Susan, what's the difference between bilocate and a solid astral projection? Like you project and you're very solid on the astral realm.
Well, I'm not really sure of the exact differences between it. The first time that it ever happened to me, I wasn't even aware of it at the time. My brother and a friend of his had gone to Mardi Gras back in the early 70s, I guess. And I was really close with my brother, and I was worried about him. And you know, we didn't hear from them. It was back when you didn't have cell phones way back then, you know, so you didn't know what was going on. I was worried about him. And he told me that they were in New Orleans one day. They were walking down the street, and that he and his friends saw me on down the street on the other side of the street. And they both looked at me. He said, what is Sue doing here? What is, and they went running over there. They tried to catch up to this person. And they by the time they got over there, gone. But he said that you were there, you were right there on the road. And that was my first experience with it. And I had no memory of it. I've had memory of other times. A couple of years ago, actually, this was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life, you know, because it was one of the things that I wanted to do the most was to help family members when I learned how to go out of body. 2 years ago on Easter, I was meditating, sort of meditating on the couch. I was here by myself. No one was home. And I just fell into a state. I was sitting, I wasn't even lying down. I was just sitting on my couch, and I fell into this state very quickly. It was more than a meditative state. It was a super conscious state. It was it was the most blissful moment, one of the most blissful moments of my life. And I remember falling over sideways on the couch and lying there with my eyes open and looking around the room. But at the same time, it's like a projection, because I thought of 3 places that I wanted to be. And I had a friend in Sweden who was sick at the time, and I wanted to check on him. So I all of a sudden, boom, I was in Sweden. I was looking around my living room, lying on the couch, but I was also there, and I could see these people outside. I could see what they were doing, if they were working. And I thought, well, if he's outside working, he's well, he's fine. And I just went up and checked and looked at his face, and it was like, oh, he's okay. He doesn't have a fever. He's okay right now. And I was doing that, but I was also on my couch. I was aware of both places. I had complete awareness of both places, everything that was going on. And from there, I thought, well, he doesn't need me. I don't need to be here. I went to England. I went to Glastonbury, and I sat on the Tor, on the hill of the Tor. You know, the Tor outside you know where that is, the hill that you traverse in England. It's a holy place. But I sat there for about 15 minutes on the side of this hill with the wind blowing my hair, and I could smell, it was just, such a sweet smell in the air, and it was wonderful. And I was on my couch looking around my living room, just lying there, and I was aware that this was happening, that something unusual that had never happened to me before was happening. And I had tears running down my face. I was so moved by this and so blissed out that I wasn't crying, but tears were just running down my face. And I'm staring around at my room, but I'm also in this place. And then from there, I decided, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I went to where my mother was in a nursing home. My mother had Alzheimer's. This was a month, 2 months before she died. I went to where she was, and she was in her wheelchair. She didn't recognize it. She was pretty much out of it, didn't. And so it was a kind of a sad, every time I went to see her, it was very sad. But I stood before her. I went into that nursing home and I stood before her, and she opened her eyes and looked at me. She could see me. And that really, but then tears were really flowing down my face on the couch here, watching the living room while I was with my mother. And I was standing in front of her, and she was looking, had her eyes open, looking at me. And I reached my hand out astrally to her, and I pulled her out of the body, and I said, "Hello, beautiful." And I said, "Let's dance." I pulled her out of the body, and I was holding her, and I said, "Let's dance." And I was dancing around with her. And when I let her go, she was back in, and then everything came right back here. And the aftermath of it, everything was different. I walked outside. I felt like I wasn't even physical anymore. I didn't even feel like I was physical. I wasn't sure if I was, when I walked outside, I wasn't even sure at that point if I was still projecting a part of myself or what. I walked outside, my dog was out there, and I tried calling him, he wouldn't come. He looked at me, he looked in my direction, but he would not come. He was acting really strange. And I noticed there was a lizard on the step, and the lizard walked right around my foot. The lizards are skittish, but it was like I wasn't even there, but I was. But that was by location. And I have trouble saying if that's completely separate from astral projection. I don't really think that it is. I think perhaps it's just a very, very physical astral body with a lot of substance. Perhaps that's what bilocation is. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of all the seances and stuff that they did in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
Well, Susan, if you do that again anytime soon, just make sure you have your COVID passport this next time.
I will have that soon. Didn't want to have to get it, but I will. I'll be through that very soon.
Yeah, it is the teleporting is kind of confusing. I looked a little bit into it, but I'll let David tell it. It's his story. So if you want, he'll probably come on next time and talk about it.
I'd like to hear that. Yeah. I really
Yeah.
like to hear that.
All right, and the next area they get into is color breathing, which Glenn kind of talked about a little bit. And in a nutshell, that's basically good for healing the physical body, learning that stage, color breathing.
Yeah.
Now, if you're into remote viewing, and a lot of people I've seen online, like, oh my God, the documents get into remote viewing, like this big thing, but he hardly ever talks about anything about it. If anything, the thing I got out of it very briefly that he talks about is how the energy bar tool, which the Monroe Institute talks about, and remote viewing work together to get the right hemisphere of the mind to pick up nonverbal symbols and understand them, which would mean, your remote viewers, they pick up and they write stuff down. So their mind's interpreting the symbols and stuff and doing it that way. Anybody like to talk about that?
Yeah, I had purchased a Ed Dames remote viewing DVD course. He was one of the first ones that did that, I think, for the Army. And when they shut that down, he started teaching that on the side. And he's on Coast to Coast AM a lot, talking about different things, a radio talk show early in the morning. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. Doesn't take much to go ahead and get trained in that, though. But yeah, you definitely tap into the symbols and stuff. And there's just a straight structure to it. You don't have to,
Right.
Get into a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now. So.
Yeah, I got that course too, Glenn, in the 90s, the Ed Dames course.
Yeah.
That's when I bought mine on VHS tape. And I got it from Coast to Coast. Yeah, that's where I heard about it back in the day when he was talking about the solar flare and that was going to hit and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I let somebody borrow them. I never got them back, and that was the end of them. All right, and now he gets into Focus 15. Focus 15, he basically describes it as traveling into the past. And sorry about that. So basically, that's traveling into the past. Focus 15. It's very advanced state and very extremely difficult to achieve. Less than 5% of participants of the 7-day gateway experience can do this. So that's during that time how hard it is he's describing to get into that state. And 15, is a nice way to check out your past lives and information pertaining to stuff like that. Anybody just jump in if you have anything you want to say about anything. We got a good group. We all respect each other here. Next is Focus 21, which he says focuses on the future. And this is the last and most advanced of all the focus states associated with the Gateway Training Program. It involves movement outside the boundaries of time-space to help discover the future. The person who can achieve this state is truly an advanced level. Yeah, I kind of forget that sometimes that, with the Gateway program, they only go up to Focus 21. I don't know. Does anybody know the newer Gateway programs? Do they go beyond Focus 21? Does anybody know? I have the older ones.
I just posted I posted a lot of stuff on the chat room. The last one I just posted goes up to Focus 49.
That's the new, when you go to the Gateway program, they'll.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know the content of the course on it, but there's a list of different focus levels there.
Yeah, I know they're researching higher and higher, and there's a good YouTube video out there with Dr. Scott Taylor there from the Monroe Institute talking about how high they're going now and how these different focus levels, how high they're getting now, exploring. So maybe they can go into the aperture they talked about eventually, who knows. And here's a little note on number 31 here about the Gateway program. It was not established solely for the purpose of enabling participants to attain the out-of-body state, nor does the program guarantee that you will have an out-of-body. Only one tape out of the many which make up the Gateway experience is devoted to the techniques involved in the out-of-body state. So you'll hear a lot of people talk about that. I've heard a lot of people talk about that it's just trying to get you into an out-of-body state. But you'll even see Robert Monroe talk about that. And there's one tape I saw where he even said you can leave now when he does a talk. And he goes, if you think you're going to have an out-of-body experience here, you're probably going to be let down. You can just get your money back and go home now. This is pretty... he mentions that the signal, which is best for an out-of-body state, and he gets pretty precise here, is around 2877.3 cycles per second is the best for an out-of-body state. And that's a little bit, let's see here. If you're into the cycles per second type information, you might like that little stat there.
What is that actually? What do you mean 2.8 whatever?
It's a different, like beta. It's a signal that the different signals that your mind is in, like alpha, beta, theta, delta. So it would be more like the way I see it is the way your brain, how it entrains onto a certain frequency. Would anybody else? That's how I see it, is as your brain kind of connects to a radio station. Anybody else? Am I saying that right?
I think he's talking about frequency. I think that's right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I looked it up. What was that number again? Jude?
It's kind of it's 2877.3.
Because it says here
Point
that
three.
the lowest frequency is delta 0.5 through 4 hertz, and then theta 4 through 8, alpha 8 through 12, beta 12 through 35, if that. And then there's one more row. It says it, but I don't see it.
Yeah, it's kind of a little conflicting here because I thought they mentioned you had to be more best state is in a theta state, which is between around 7 hertz.
Do you know anything about people that have had NDEs? Do they must have some frequency, right? Or are they actually flatline completely?
Supposedly there was one guy that verified he was flatlined completely, brain dead, and he was a doctor.
That was
But I haven't-
Even
Elon.
Alexander.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is it Elon?
Even Alexander.
Yeah.
Ethan? Yeah, but typically though, the NDEs are not. They do show something. I'm just curious because that 2 point whatever, I always thought that the lower that frequency, because it kind of seems that the lower that frequency, the greater the out of body focus could be, so to speak. Like when right now, being awake, that out of body awareness is quite distant. The closer you get to a death of the physical and the mind, it seems to enable what that other part of us to for us to be aware of that other part of us. You know what I'm saying? Sort of when the sun is blocked in an eclipse, we can see the star. So that bright sunlight is down. So that's what I thought. But it's interesting that it may be that going below theta, even though that's contradicting what you just said, you would think that theta, because it describes theta as a deeply relaxed, inward focused, and I'm not looking at anything other than a scientific
Yeah.
description.
Yeah, well, he mentions here, Lenny. He mentions that. I'll go down a little bit here. He mentions that 3 ways to have an out-of-body experiences later in the documents, and one of them is to get in a theta state between 4 and 8 hertz, and which is deeply relaxed, inward focused area. So I don't know. It's kind of conflicting to me. I don't know if anybody understands those 2 numbers and how they came up with that. Or I interpret that first number wrong from something, but he does mention cycles per second for that one, but then gets into hertz later on with the theta area, so I'm not sure. But it is interesting if you're flatlined and your brain has no frequencies. What are you in training on the highest state that's beyond that? How are you connecting with an out-of-body experience if your brain's dead? If there's nothing being shown like on an EEG.
Can you rephrase the question?
We try to use like hemisync and stuff like that to get our frequencies together, or certain hertz. We try to get her so we can get in these states of mind. But when we flatline, there's no frequency at all. So my question is, where's your consciousness going, tapping into when you're flatlined?
Sorry. I think that's a great question, except I think the question is like different from what you're asking. Because the way I've always looked at it is, as long as our awake conscious mind, which we seem to take part of that with us, we retain, if we have an OBE, we retain not all of our mind, but a good part of it, at least. We know who we are. We can recite our address, our phone number. We have memories. But they're not, all this is, in my opinion, is not based in the brain or what we call our conscious waking mind. And
I think Lenny's went on another frequency there.
Yeah, I just looked, the cycles per second is in fact hertz.
Sorry
So it's
about that.
the same.
Okay. Lenny, did you just leave your body, or what happened there?
no, there was an evil entity that was trying to force its way into my universe. But,
Your girlfriend.
So, but you know, Juice, that question, that is such a really great question. And I would say this, that the tricks, call them tricks if you like, the tricks that we've read about to help us induce OBE experiences, those enable a shift to take place. And once that shift takes place, we don't have to worry much about what's going on with our physical, unless it begins to stir. And then that may shift us back out of that state. But I think that the trick is to just die, get as close to death as possible. That's just my thoughts about this. And it's interesting that, you know, people that have NDEs, that they've had those without any preparation. A lot of them never heard of an out-of-body experience. You know, they just have a spontaneous NDE. Then a lot of people, I've gone under full anesthesia, which is certainly not the same. Obviously, I think a lot of people haven't. You know, we don't remember a thing. Nothing happens. So there seems to be the need for us to be actually, because full anesthesia is closer to death from where we are now, but it's not close enough for something to shift within us. And the NDE does that, you know. And what you're trying to do with hemisync and all is, in a sense, just a shortcut to stimulate that shift to occur, you know. And it's kind of interesting, and that is, why does that shift occur? You know what I'm saying? Why does it occur in some people and others it doesn't? And from what you said, it apparently is very few people that go to the gateway experiences have that shift occur.
So some quick stats. I think it was Monroe, but it was definitely repeated in Robert Peterson's book, that anesthesia does not tend to help out, does not tend to help cause OBEs. It tends to hinder them because there's no part of you left there to direct yourself out of body. And also, I remember Robert Bruce talked about the difference between a lucid dream and an out of body with regard to brain waves, and that lucid dream is more in the expected trance state, whereas an OBE is a much deeper state of mind. Even though you feel just as awake in a lucid versus an OBE, you're in a different brainwave frequency.
Right. Also, Monroe talks about that anesthesia didn't even work for him towards the end of his life. If you guys remember that, they could give it to him, and he couldn't have anything bad for his body. It would reject it. He got to a point in his life. That was interesting. That anesthesia doesn't work on him.
You know, something weird, something like 10, 12 years ago, nitrous oxide quit working on me. And it you know, it always did what it's supposed to do, and it made the whole dental experience doable. And then it just one time it didn't work. I mean, and I made the dentist change the tank. He changed the gauges. They changed the hoses. They did everything. And he said, there's nothing wrong. And from that point forward, different dentists, there was zero. It had zero effect. It was the strangest thing. And, I just get Novocaine and, technically you don't feel pain. You're not as relaxed, obviously. But then I had major dental work, and I was under full anesthesia, so I was relieved of the agony that I used to have to sit through. But that's interesting, and I never could look at, I never even researched it, why, or is this all in my mind, but it was very clear. It existed. It was very simple for me to know that, but I don't know why.
I had a nitrous oxide problem when I was a kid. The first time I ever did it, they put it on me. My mother told them not to use it on me, but they did. She wasn't in the room. And I remember I started losing touch with reality as it was coming on. I started feeling like I was disassociating from my body. And I took the mask and I threw the mask off, and I ran out of the room crying. That was my only experience with nitrous oxide. So I'm actually still scared of it to this day from that experience.
Man, you need to try it again.
Yeah, I know. Now it's like
Just on purpose.
right. I should have I don't want to get into that. I was thinking of Lee, Stephanie. All right. Anybody else like to comment? Marty?
Just a trivia note. You were just talking about nitrous oxide, and before I was talking about the molecule you make in your breathing passages, which is nitric, Nitric oxide, just to avoid confusion. The other thing you were talking about, how can the brain flatline and you still have an experience? At least the way I understand it is that you're having the experience with, and forgive me if I use the wrong word, that astral body or bioenergetic body or whatever the right word is, but that doesn't need a physical brain to have its experience. So the reason that we need to dampen our brain down to theta or whatever is because we're trying to quiet the brain so that we can get out and not have the brain interfere with it. So that's just my thought. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice, Marty. I hit a aha. It just hit me. Yep.
Don't want you to ever touch me.
Anyone else on this subject?
I want to just mention one thing in line with what Marty was saying, and that is, I believe that our essential self is a non-physical. It's a non-physical consciousness, and that's where all of us is. All of us that we experience here, all of our thoughts that we have here, everything, even assuming that we're existing in a non-physical currently but aren't aware of it, that if the non-physical is the repository of our true self, then this self can flatline and we won't lose the ability to access all of that knowledge, memory, and sense of who we are, so to speak, and not the other way around. Because if it was the other way around, then the closer we get to flatlining, we would not be experiencing anything or have any of those memories. So it almost validates the fact that we truly are a non-physical entity, that's who we truly are. And of course, what that means and how far that goes is an unknown.
That's the fun part to figure out, Lenny. You know you're having fun doing it. It's all fun. This is great. Trying to figure all this out. All right. Next, number 32 point, he gets into the role of REM sleep. Talks a little bit about that. Deep levels of sleep like REM state can be linked to focus levels like 12, 15, and 21. But the difference between those states and the condition of the mind in REM sleep seems to be that the left hemisphere is almost totally disengaged in the latter experience, such as the memory of what was achieved in the altered states of consciousness cannot usually be retrieved by consciousness desire because of the left hemisphere has no knowledge of its existence or its location in the right hemisphere. So I got it that it's just basically of what you can remember and what you can't because of what part of your brain is awake or asleep. Anybody like to comment on that?
That sounds intriguing. Like very few OBEs are remembered, and that sounds like the why. Could you summarize that again?
The difference between those states and the condition of the mind in REM sleep seems to be that the left hemisphere is almost totally disengaged in the latter experience, such that memory of what was achieved in the altered state of consciousness cannot usually be retrieved by conscious desire because of the left hemisphere has no knowledge of its existence or its location in the right hemisphere.
Ooh.
Certain things are turned on or off, I guess, for information storage, passage, and recognition.
And there's some Alzheimer's drugs that help memory recall for them, but also help with dream recall, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I wonder if those could help cross the brain. Why, in that sense.
And I guess he's trying to compare. He gets more into REM too. There's a lot more he talks about REM, but this is the thing that I jotted down, and why we can't remember compared to like when we're in focus 12, 15, and 21. Why you have better recall from that, but you're still in the same states. But you're in the same states, but a different frame of mind when you're in those states of how you can remember stuff. Anyone else?
I've always just remembered everything. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. I've just always remembered everything, and I always have a tablet with me. So I'm expecting to write everything down. So I'm expecting to bring it back, and so.
The one thing, if I may, I added a snapshot of the right brain experience. It's a book I'm reading right now, published in '83, that talks about how to tap into your right brain and the creativity, and it talks a lot about how to recall your dreams and that type thing. And there's some very good information in there as well. I'm reading that book right now, trying to fine-tune my intention ability, and it's a fascinating book. And just as a side issue, there's some stories by some creative people, Raymond Bradbury and Charles Schultz and that type of thing, and how they tap into their creativity. It's some fascinating reading. It really is. I highly recommend that.
Cool. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, it's in the chat area there. Glenn, is that the book you're talking about that you sent where it talks about the phasing?
I listed quite a few things.
Okay.
I can discuss that in the end, what I actually added, because there's some new people here. Then I added some more stuff that I put on the TMI Facebook group, CIA, other CIA documents, and but there's a plethora of information I posted. Yeah, hey Lenny, I added a link on there for the Tillman Foundation. He discusses a lot of what you've been discussing in terms of different levels of consciousness and all that type stuff. He's that Stanford scientist that you might be interested in reading. He's got some white papers out there that I think everybody might find interesting. this, when we talked about the noise levels and the diagram we reviewed earlier this evening, that's where that information came from.
This is gonna be my. I'm gonna cut this off. This is gonna be my last note I do here for the night. So we get into some other stuff too. He mentions 3 ways to have an out-of-body experience, getting towards the end of the documents, and this is, I kind of made some brief notes here. Number 1, a state of quiet in the mind, and you want your mind. Here we go around 7 hertz, which is theta area. Theta is between 4 and 8 hertz. Number 2, syncing of both brain hemispheres wave patterns. That's number 2. And number 3, stimulation of the right hemisphere as heightened alertness. We just kind of talked about that. You want to make sure your right brain area is heightened as your left brain falls asleep. And I'm just going to mention, I'm going to do part 4. I'm going to be taking a trip to Georgia, North Carolina. So I was going to do part 4 next Monday. And Susan, I think I have the days down right this time. I know I mess up. Sometimes I mess up on what day I'm in. That's what happens when you got too much time in your hands, I guess. I lose track of time here. But so next Monday will be the final part 4, where we could talk about any part of the documents at all the way to the end. We'll talk about anything. And then we'll just go from there. If we run out of things to talk about, we'll just move into our own personal experiences and questions. Okay, would anybody like to talk about the 3 ways to have an OBE? All right, Glenn, I'm going to let you start off here. And
Well, if you go to the chat up on the top, forget that first one. That's the link. It works for me, but I'm not sure if it's going to work for anybody else. But that's what I had posted to the TMI Facebook group. It's but then the first time I had joined, I mentioned I had downloaded all the CIA documents that related to the Gateway program, and I just posted them here for everybody here as well. And then the phasing primer, that's the one that has assisted me to go ahead and phase in. And I've been having some great success with that over the last week and a half. The Gateway experiences, that's what you sent me, Juice, in terms of defining the Gateway wave series, because there were 6 sets of 6 cassettes each. The next one is my phasing comments in terms of how it has affected my journey. The next link down there is what in my version of a rocket man, from 25 seconds on is how I fly during the OBEs. And it's kind of like Superman, only I don't put my hands out in front of me like this. I'm kind of down with the hands on the side, and it's just awesome. So if you ever want to show anybody what an OBE is like flying, that's it, at least for me. And then, Susan, when you were talking about your state of bliss when you were on the couch that one time, there's a book called Bliss Brain that I've read, and I put the link there to the website, and there's different drop-down menus for each particular chapter. They talk different meditations. There's some scientific articles that deal with the consciousness and all of that type stuff. So it really applies to what we're doing right now and can help everybody out. And then the next one is the focus level definitions. That's the one that go all the way up to focus 49, and there's not a whole lot. It's just kind of like a high level summary. And then the right brain experience, there's a snapshot of the Amazon book that I'm reading right now. And like we just finished up, tapping into that right brain creativity is key for the OBE experiences. And that's what I'm trying to focus in on now after succeeding with the phasing. And then Lenny, take a look at that Tillman Foundation. I think you might find that some interesting reading in terms of the scientific experiments with consciousness and all of that type stuff. I think you might find that fascinating.
Check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, Glenn, that's awesome. And I was going to ask Glenn, did the TMI, did they post your post on there? Did it go through?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to check it out, Glenn, but I will.
Yeah, yeah, this has been, since I've been retired, I've been doing this stuff since I was in my teens, but now being retired, it's wonderful having all this time. Oh my goodness.
Anyone else like to bring up anything? Jason, you want to mention what you're doing with Mike for everyone?
Yeah, I'm going to take over for Mike for the TMI meditation meetups. So those are the second Wednesday of the month. And I'll probably do like a hybrid if I can, in person here at the house, and then online Zoom, kind of like we've been doing. So that'll be, you can get to that through the Astral Projection meetup group or the TMI meetup group for sign up. And then I'm going to try and do like a vote system. I have a couple different, selections, and we'll just see what everybody wants to do instead of waiting until the last minute. That's the plan.
Awesome, Jason. Anybody else have anything they want to say before I close the night?
Great to see everyone.
I love
Yeah,
this. I love it. All right, everyone. Thanks for sharing and coming. See you next week.
All right.
Take care.
See you, everybody.
Make sure I'll stay on if you didn't get the chat stuff there, so grab it. The links. Grab the links.